Hmm. All right, thanks, Gaga, for very nice introduction. And I bet you're already sleepy at the time. And I'm bringing this kind of topic, so it will add to your exhaustiveness, I guess. All right, so um, today I'm going to talk about part of the project, which is currently underway for my PhD program. And this is small part of what I'm doing in the overall description of ideational grammar in Sundanese. And now we're going to look at the Filbert groups in Sundanese through the systemic functional linguistics. But for today, I'm going to focus more on the word structures, realizing events in Sundanese. All right, so some little overview of my talk today. So first of all, I'm going to locate the project within the overall trajectory of my PhD, and then some motivation underpinning the project, point of departure, especially on previous works on Sundanese description, and then the current stream of SFL involved language description. And then before we move on to this word structure, we're going to look at the overview of Sundanese verbal groups, both in terms of experiential meaning and interpersonal meaning. And that will be kind of the gateway on how we look at the word structures that is realizing event specifically. And for that, for the ideas, we took morphology as a part of lexical grammar. And for looking at the structures, we are going to propose the subjacent pseudoplexes as structures. Okay, so here are the overall trajectory of my project. So this descriptive work was kicked off when I was doing my MA at Department of Linguistics. And then we start with a very small focus, which is on material clauses, and it has been published. And then we move down into nominal group ranks, which also been published with Yeg and Dahlan. And then we start with a very simple, let's say, corpus consisting of text from wide range of register and genre. At the time, it was supported by Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences research grant. Thanks to Yegan for doing this. So we collect histories, sciences, and casual conversation, and some humorous sketches from the text that is available on the internet. So mostly on our website, magazines, and some also on YouTube's. And luckily, I've got this grant to collect more data in for Sundanese spoken data next year, and hopefully that will add into the variability of the data collected for this project. And right, so a little bit about Sundanese. So if you look at the Indonesian archipelago map, so Sundanese are spoken mostly here in West Java, and it's also border and spoken in some area in the capital of Indonesia, in Jakarta. And within the West Java itself, we have more than one languages, regional languages. So here is another regional languages in West Java, which is Cirebonese or Japanese dialect, which is spoken in West Java. And for Sundanese itself, it belongs to Austronesian language family, particularly within the Malayo-Polynesian branch, and mostly spoken is in West Java. So people tend to be describing the Sundanese as, or classified into two general classification: Baduy, which is spoken in here somewhere. And then Sundanese in general, which covered large area in West Java. And Sundanese is also one of major language in Indonesia, and it has around 32 million speakers as of 2019. So one of the main or major motivation underlying this project is that there are some educational concern with the teaching of Sundanese in school. So Sundanese, Cirebon Javanese, and some Melayu Betawi has been formally included in the curriculum as the regional languages that needs to be taught in West Java province. And it happened from elementary to secondary and some in tertiary, especially in Bandung, when we have two universities offering Sundanese linguistics and education department. So training people to be aspiring Sundanese teachers or Sundanese linguists. And by including those regional languages, it is said that it's a positive step towards maintaining the Sundanese vitality, because now Sundanese is facing some challenges from Bahasa Indonesia, because Bahasa Indonesia is more dominant in the society as it is official and national language of Indonesia. And within the curriculum, or particularly for teaching the language, the regional language, SFL-informed pedagogy has been adopted in the curriculum. So they introduce the teaching of language through the genre, through the text. And by doing that, we need a rich text-based description that needs to cater for the success of students when learning the language. And by having the rich text-based description, we can explore how patterns of language interact with broader discourse-semantic patterns across registers and genre. And one interesting report currently in the teaching of Sundanese itself, or in the textbook, there is some misunderstanding about genre. So the textbook or the text material developer failed to recognize the difference between what we know as argumentative and procedural, because, and in addition to that, the textbook, the current textbook, which is available for teaching Sundanese also, do not have pretty much elaboration on the genre in terms of structures and meta languages. Oops. And then what we have now is that the teaching of Sundanese itself is relied on the current available description, which is tend to be formal or traditional, without considering the patterning of language in terms of how they contribute to discourse semantic and register and genre pattern. So that's why this kind of misunderstanding about genre happening in Sundanese teaching. All right, so here are the point of departure of my work. So this is some linguists that provide initial pathway on Sundanese description. They're working within different theoretical paradigm, like Robbins here, Arjadi Brada, Muller, Gautama, and Hanafi. They're working with different kind of theoretical orientation when describing the Sundanese. And what we got is that they provide good starting point for developing a more comprehensive description by now looking at how those grammatical patterns integrate with discourse patterning. Right. And then streams of SFL-informed language descriptions also available now, which is also inspiring to be adopted for developing Sundanese ideational grammar in my project. All right, so from the previous descriptive works on Sundanese, there's little knowledge known about the verbal groups. So there's mostly classifying verbs as verbs rather than as verb groups. For example, in a very classic Sundanese description in Adiwijaya and Wirakusuma. And then there's no formal characteristics included to recognize the verbs, be it from morphology or from syntax perspective. And then the probes comes when Fanshok introduced his description on morphology and phonology on Sundanese in 1950. He proposed that verbs can be probed by asking these more, never. But there's some problems because most of the time verbs can also be probed by using the, which he considered that is fit more for the adjectives. And then verb classes, according to Hajadibrata, has some roles in predicate technique, and then for Mula Gautama, he considered verb as a core of the sentence construction, and then verbs as predicate. But from Hajadibrata and Mula Gautama's work, we can point out some important things to be adopted for an initial step on the development of functional description of Sundanese verbal groups. So they both agree that verbs are core in particular types of sentences. In Sundanese, we have verbal clause, so we kind of relating two nominal groups without any verb, and that's completely fine. And then if we adopt that point to the consideration and try to develop these functional perspective or functional description, we can say that verbs tend to be something which is modal responsible in the clause, and then we can argue that from interpersonal metafunction, it is the constituent that is crucial for the negotiation of information or goods and services. And from ideational point of view, by labeling the verbs as a core is somehow problematic because we have these categories of clauses which do not have any verbs. So our first step for describing verbal groups in Sundanese, I'm adopting insights from Beakiras, from Jim, Beakiras, and Pinwang, Mus, and also Pinwang in describing the Manchu verbal groups. All right, so we're starting from this example of the text. This is one of the fable available in Sundanese that at the time we can find this out. So we start by looking at text here. This is typical story with orientation, complication, resolution, and coda. And then we also look at the procedure and how to make dodol garut with a kind of toffee or candy of some sense. And some example, I also use this translation version of Le Petit Prince, which is translated into Prabu Anom. And it's really interesting also to look at the introduction on Sundanese script in this day, because it's really really rare to have the occasion that you can see this Sundanese script being introduced again. All right, so from the experiential perspective, we can see that verbal groups consider the process within the clause and its realizing event. So from the orientation stage of the story that we have looked at, we've got Ayah berit nuani-wani naik kagigir singa nuker sare, singa kaget, tulu nyaring, serta berita dicaplok. So there was a mouse who was brave enough to climb beside a sleeping lion. The lion was startled, then awoke, and then the mouse was punched. So you can have these in them. It's not working. All right, so we've got Ayah, one verb, realizing the event. So this is a existential clause within the relational paradigm. And then nyaring, tuloy singa nyaring, and derite dicapu. Within the another text procedures, we can look at the verbs also realizing the event. For example, here, chipati kental dimasak di jero wajan gede. So thick coconut milk is cooked in a big wok. Aduk terus the dough, stir the dough continuously. So these verbal groups within a clause, they really contribute to the control of the process. And if you look at into the lower rank, they are functioning as an event. All right, again, asupkan gula, put the sugar in, and asupkan lemak sapi, put the beef fat in. So it's the same. Oh, what's happening? All right, so that's some step that we can take when considering the public groups from the experiential perspective. And then we're going to move towards the interpersonal. So far, we can see that the public groups can have different kind of roles when indicating mood of clause. So for example, we've got indicative for giving information or services, and then imperative for instructing or ordering. For indicative, interaction with other systemic option is available. For example, aspect, modality, and polarity, while for the imperative, they tend to be restricted into the polarity. So they're not available with aspect and modality. So by considering that, we can look at or start to categorize the verbal groups in terms of pre-selection into elaborative, those who are enacting the feature of indicative, and then restricted for those who are enacting the imperative. So from ideational point of view, you can see that the verbal groups can also be classified based on the contribution to the field relation in the register. For example, verbal groups can contribute to the dynamic control or static control of field. And then moving down one strata to discourse semantics, so we can actually distinguish the contribution of verbal groups with the occurrence or state figures, the control of occurrence and state figures, and those will connect to the lexical grammar stratum with the non-relational and relational types of clause. Non-relational tend to be realized by eventive, and non-relational or by non-eventive in that sense. Okay, so this is the pre-selection of verbal groups in Sundanese. So look at the mood here, indicative process, pre-select the class of elaborative verbal groups, and imperative process, which is pre-selecting the restricted type of verbal groups. And for transitivity, non-relational is for pre-select eventive. Non-relational is pre-selecting the non-eventive. And this is a close rank, and you can choose the pre-selection from the group rank here. This Daxis, so I'm following the Bea Kiro's labeling on verbal group Daxis and verbal group types. So we're not going to look at into function level in group level. So we're going to focus more on the structures that realizing the event in verbal group structure. So the point of departure on this one is that taking some ideas on Christian Messianism on morphology. So We look at morphology as a region of lexicography. So they are not separate modules between close or morphology, though they are in fact in one or similar region. And from the stratification point of view, the lexicography, the morphology is a part of content plan of language. And then from the hierarchy of ranks scale. So the morphology is on the word rank. So it means below the group or phrase rank, but within the lexicography stratum. And from the function, it's still questionable. All right, 5 more minutes. All right, all right, 5 to 10, cool. Here, keeping this one. So Christianity offered ways of visualizing the dependency between part or morphology in the word as rhetorical structure theory. We've got cipher, decipher, decipherable, indecipherable, indecipherability. And another proposal, we can also look at that in terms of suggestion to the plexus. So we're trying to capture the possibility of logical system which is realized by a non-iterative structure, which is involving adjacent elements with one element dependent on the other. And for subjacent to the plexus, it adds layer to the structures or tables when doing the analysis, but that layering do not reflect systemic choices of their own. They're part of the realization. So, for example, we've got these proposed by Christian Matheson, and we can also use the duplexes or subjacent to duplexes to capture the dependency in that. So it said decipher, decipherable, indecipherable, indecipherability. So in that sense, different alternative for visualizing the dependency in morphology. All right, so to start with, event in Sundanese can be realized by a verb consisting only one morpheme. So head realized by stem, ayah, berit nuwane naik kaki girsing anu persare, exist, process, verbal group, event, verb, head and stem, dulu using a nyaring, then the lion awoke, so nyaring, awoke, head and stem. Verbs with more than one morphemes can impose the suggestion to duplexes to capture features on the dependency realizing features such as voice, causative, applicative, inflection, derivation, and other things that may happen in the verb. So asupkan verbs alpha and beta, stem and causative, mangrupa, verbalizing stem, diceritakan, so we've got more than one morpheme. Carita, ceritakan, diceritakan. Diceritakan is this layer, and we've got another layer, ceritakan, diceritakan. So that's capturing the dependency relation in morphological structure. So with more than one morphemes, you can also capture that nasalization and its morphophonemic processes, which is predominant in Sundanese, and the nasalization tends to indicate the operative voice, like the become the ch, k, g, into So we can going to use the backlash for capturing this kind of morphophonemic nasalization, and then hyphen, which is for other types of morphophonemic process, such as nah. Kuring nempel gambar nulis kacida di hiji buku, C, backslash, mikir, and ngegambar. And duplexes can also be used to describing the more complex dependency. For example, ngajentrekun nana, ngajentrekun nana. So it's starting from here, stem, jentrekun, ngajentrekun nana. And for partial reduplication as well, which is common in Sundanese or other Austronesian languages like Papangi, partial. So we've got Pangi, and that's the reduplication is initial syllable, Pa, Papangi, or Sambat, Sa, Sasambat. So this tilde is indicating the reduplication going on. But for full reduplication, it's still, really interesting to discuss because I propose that this one is full reduplication is realized by paratactic word complexes with two verbs realizing one event. And within these, we can also capture another suggestion to duplexes in that sense. All right, so far, we have seen the potential of applying adjacent to duplexes in terms of verb structures in Sundanese, involving adjacent element with one element dependent on the another, and then those capture the logical structure by non-iterative system, and then it can capture the dependency relation from verbs that are realized by multiple morphemes and features like voice, causative, implicative, inflection, derivation, numbers, person, and the like. And the next step, which I consider is challenging, but it's worthy of pursuing, is that try to map out the possible network system that can map out these structures in Sundanese verbs. So be it. Thank you.